Hello and welcome to Engage, the program that focuses on community-engaged research, learning, and service at Mississippi State University. I'm your host, Cade Smith, and today I'm joined by Dr. Dennis Truax, who is the James T. White Chair, Department Head and Professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Dennis, welcome to Engage.
Thank you, Cade. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. So, Dennis, as Department Head in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, why don't you tell us about your background and your role as Department Head at Mississippi State?
Okay. I've been a practicing civil and environmental engineering, my undergraduate degree being civil, my area of expertise being environmental and water resources engineering, both by education, practice, and certification, for the better part of 4 decades. Okay. That has led me to the opportunities to work in government, business, industry, as well as academia. My forte has been process optimization, but the real attraction for what I've done in my profession is making things better for people, providing resources, addressing environmental damage, preventing pollution, providing water supply. And then, of course, in the academic role, the research that's associated with that and the instructional components that I support through my activities and the activities of the department are there to engage individuals in a way so that they can go forward as future practicing engineers and do the same thing for literally decades to come.
Great. So you improve the lives of students, engineers, and the citizens of Mississippi as well.
That's true. The civil engineering program that we have within our department aligns quite well with the land grant mission of Mississippi State University. We are regionally focused, but our graduates literally work around the world.
So one of the things that I'm really excited to hear about your work in is the MSU's chapters of Engineers Without Borders. You're the faculty advisor for Engineers Without Borders at Mississippi State University. So why don't you tell us about the mission of Engineers Without Borders and how that mission is filled?
Be glad to. Thank you. A lot of folks have heard for some time now about Doctors Without Borders, and that represents an opportunity for professionals within that particular discipline to take their skill set around the world to areas that have need but don't have the resources to support full-time activities in medicine. Well, Engineers Without Borders is adopted the model or pirated the model in some ways, and we do quite literally the same thing. We look at needs around the world, and these needs can be pretty much anything you would think. In fact, using the terminology we have today, we talk about infrastructure. But that infrastructure can be bridges, it could be roadways, it could be school buildings, it could be housing, it could be power supply. And because of my background, we've focused here to the most part on environmental issues, sanitation, water supply, irrigation, and these are all within the mission of EWB. Again, the goal is to help people improve the quality of life, improve their health, improve their economic conditions through the infrastructure that those involved in the program provide.
So for a number of years now, you've been taking MSU students and staff members to Zambia to do some very important work there that's powerful at the community level in Zambia and then also in student learning. So why don't you tell us about that work, Dennis?
Well, it has. The original project that we took on from EWB was to look at possibly building micro dams as a water supply in the southern Zambian region, about 70 kilometers north of Livingston or the Zimbabwe border. We went in and did an assessment and realized that the human health aspects weren't going to be protected by these open, small reservoirs. And we did a lot of work with local contractors and local agencies and determined that a better solution was putting in water wells. So based on that, we came back, told EWB of an alternative They approved it, and then in the subsequent years, the next 3 years, we went back and started putting in water wells. In year 2, our goal was to install some water wells and see how that worked, and it worked really well. We had some technical problems, some equipment problems, and that gave the students who went, and we had a good number of students. We typically take 6 to 7 back with us each year. That showed the students ways of kind of MacGyvering systems.
Right.
How do you deal with last minute problems? How do you make plan adjustments? How do you manage both logistical and emergency situations? And we went through all of that process with the students, engaged them in the decision process, and ultimately ended in putting in a couple wells. Based on that, though, we found that there were a number of other opportunities we can engage in, and so the program expanded beyond just providing water. For example, one of the opportunities we found to engage the communities during our first trip was to provide some kind of sports education. Football, or what we would call soccer, is an extremely popular sport, and with the World Cup going on right now, you can imagine the kind of how the world gets wrapped up in that. Well, we found that the kids in the area were playing soccer with basically rags tied together to make kind of somewhat of a ball. And we found ways of taking the balls in and playing with them and teaching them some of the fundamentals of the sport. We found out on our first trip that there was a need for a hygiene program. And so in the following years, we took materials back and supported that: toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap. Then there was an educational opportunity, and we got involved in that. And then during year 2, we ran across an opportunity. It's very traditional in Zambia that if you do something for somebody, they return the favor immediately or soon thereafter. So as we were putting in water wells, we were getting chickens and goats being given to us as gifts. Not exactly something that goes in your checked luggage and comes home. So working with the NGO that we were working with in town, or in the area, in the region of Simulacella, we started an animal husbandry program. And it started off with one somewhat lame goat that was intended to be eaten, and a chicken. And then it became 2 goats and 6 chickens, and one of the chickens was now a rooster, and all of a sudden now we're producing eggs and more chickens and more goats. And so when we left after the 5th year, we had several farm operations running based on the animal husbandry program. The water supply was geared towards drinking water. In Zambia, in the part of Zambia we were working in, they only have rain about 4 or 5 months out of the year. Surface supplies dry up. The groundwater is relatively close to the surface, maybe 100 meters or less, and that made us drilling for the wells work really well. But that water supply, that consistent water supply on a 12-month basis, when they were used to clean water maybe 6 months out of the year, allowed them to grow more crops, made people healthier. People could clean their clothes more effectively. Quality of life improved. People were able to start making more crafts, which meant that they now had more money in the non-growing season time of the year, and so their economic standing started to improve. And then a really important piece of what we did, and we didn't realize this really until year 3, it wasn't uncommon for people to look at water supplies in different ways than we do here in the United States. And in fact, we found a number of families where the young daughter, around age 4, would be pressed into service to go to the nearest water supply, usually several kilometers away, taking the better part of a day to carry the cans to it and back. And this would be her job for the next 10 to 12 years. 7 days a week, day in and day out, not getting an education, not being able to really have a life, not being a child. And having that water supply now a kilometer away, where it now takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, no more than 30 minutes a day to get water for the family, allows this young lady to go to school, get an education, be a child, have a completely different life. And putting water in does that. And that was quite rewarding and was part of the game plan we used in defining where the wells went.
So when you go back to the communities in subsequent years, can Do you document the positive impacts on health, economic well-being, and sense of community in those places?
Absolutely. In fact, EWB is very high on the issues of sustainability and verification. The sustainability piece, what we put in has to be easily maintained, and the local community has to have the fiscal and personal resources or personnel resources to actually make the equipment run, repair it, ensure that things are kept running. The rest of the piece is a matter of talking with leaders, talking with local residents, inspecting the wells, doing water quality tests to verify that the water quality has been sustained, make sure that the supply has been maintained. And each year we would go back to the wells we had put in as we put in additional wells. And then in the 5th year, we did a comprehensive assessment on all of the facilities to make sure that the sustainability piece was there, that the wells were being maintained, but more importantly, what were the impacts? And without exception, in fact, I very vividly still see 2 individuals telling me in 2 different locations that they no longer have dysentery. They no longer have intestinal problems. Mm-hmm. They no longer get sick. Wow. As a matter of 3 or 4 times a year that they're healthy. I remember at one location, the teacher who we were talking with saying that for the 300 to 350 students he had in his school, lunchtime is a process of about 30 minutes, and the rest of the day is spent learning, whereas before the well was put in, they would spend the majority of the day trying to get water, clean up, and get back to class. 2 hours in class as opposed to 8 hours in class.
So undoubtedly a tremendous impact on the local community and the lives of individuals. You talked about the practical skills of project management that students learn.
Yes.
And then also, I'm sure there's a realization on the essential nature of water for vibrant communities. Can you tell us about student learning?
Well, yes, the student learning piece comes a lot of different ways. On the front end, the students have to manage paperwork and write proposals and develop technical documents that have to be submitted to EWB that are reviewed by professionals, which they have to defend in a professional environment in a technical review. And all of that skill set is part of the management. In the field, managing the resources. I mean, we would have to carry the water we wanted to drink into the field and metering that water out. How much food would we need? And distributing that food amongst ourselves. And then in terms of the projects, dealing with the time management. How long does it take to drill a well? What's involved?
Great, that's outstanding. So this project, undoubtedly, Engineers Without Borders, is powerful for the local community in Zambia and in student learning. And Dennis, we thank you for doing the good work of Engineers Without Borders and student learning. And I'm Cade Smith, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Engaged, the program that focuses on community-engaged research, learning, and service at Mississippi State University. Until our next episode, be engaged.